Thank you, Lynn. Good morning, everybody. First thing I wanted to say was that we're here today because over the last few months, I've been working on a guide for original cataloging because it has seemed for a while that there really is a need. The guide is now complete, and I'm going to present it to you all today and next Friday. Once we're finished with this Zoom training, the guide will be posted on I presume, the main Infonet website, and it'll live there. You can consult it when you need it or print it out and keep it close to your heart. Now in Minerva and MILS, we have a very large number of individuals that are contributing bibliographical records to our shared catalogs, and with a very wide range of experience and training. So our goal for this training is to review the process of creating original records when you absolutely, positively can't find an existing one that you can attach to. I will say that the training today is not going to be cataloging 101. I have to presume that if you're here, you do have some cataloging experience, even if it's just match and attach copy cataloging. Now, I understand that the prospect of creating an original catalog record can be daunting, but I'm hoping that I'll be able to show you today that it's really not as difficult as you might think. We're just going to go through the basic steps, and I've also tried to anticipate some of the complications that might pop up that will, slow you down. So also, I just wanted to mention, don't feel like you have to take copious notes today. I think it's better if you just listen and, watch what's on the screen, because the document that we're going to post is really very thorough, and it should all be there for you when you need it. Okay.
Oh, and just to interject, we will have a recording. It will be after the two presentations. So we'll provide Ellen's documentation that she has and the recordings for you to refer back to, and to help anybody else that you may think of that needs this as well.
Okay, thanks, Lynn. Okay, now before we, as we get started, the first thing I want to do is show you how to make sure that you have Sierra set up for original cataloging. And let's see. So I'm going to try and share my Sierra screen with you now. Come on, computer. Okay. Okay. Hopefully you can all see that. I just wanted to point out that I have personalized my Sierra just to make certain accommodations for my own vision and so forth. And so it actually may look different from what you're seeing, but I just want to assure you that it's the same program. There's nothing else different except for the colors and so forth. And that's something that we can talk about at another time if you're interested. So, all right. Now, when you're creating an original record, it's likely that you will be using a bib record template. If you're not familiar with record templates, the following illustrations are going to show you the process of setting up templates. So the first thing to do would be to go up here to the admin tab and select settings. Then when at least in my copy of Sierra, when the default is when I open up this menu, it's on this new records tab. So what you want to do is scroll down here to the new record templates section. And if it's not already selected for bibliographic records, you should have always prompt for template selected. You can see there are other, you can limit it to a single template. Like if you're a person that only catalogs DVDs or only catalogs periodicals, you can set it that way. But I just default to always prompt for template. Let's see. What happens when you do this is that when you're on the cataloging screen and you click on new, in other words, to create a new bib record, it's going to bring up a menu of all the templates that are available to you. So anytime you make a change here, you want to make sure that you save settings down here at the bottom. So then the next step would be to go over here to the record templates tab and click on that. And you may be familiar with this because you have the option to have templates for check-in records, item records, patron records, and so forth. But it opens up to the bib page. Now, you're going to see that there are two boxes here. Over here on the right, or let's say over here on the left, you have your preferred templates. And these are specific to your login. And then over here on the right is the other templates. Now, it's possible you may not have anything selected under preferred templates. So I'm going to show you how to select them. The best way to do this, well, okay, let me back up. What you see here under other templates is all the templates that have been created by various different libraries. And right now I'm working in the Minerva Sierra. So MILS librarians, you won't see your templates here. But wanted to mention that I have recently gone in and created generic bib templates. And I've done this both for Sierra and MILS. You'll see them here on the right hand. They're all labeled beginning with the letters GEN, meaning that right now they're generic. They're not specific to any particular library. So let's say you need a template for creating a new print book. Scroll through this menu and eventually you will find this template for a generic print book. It's hard to read because of the narrow width of this box, but so what you would do first is to click on this generic template and then go to edit. Can you all see the box that has popped up here? Hopefully.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'm paranoid.
Okay, I got you.
Now, without changing anything on this screen, you want to go again to this edit button over here in the upper left. Scroll down and select copy template. So immediately the box pops up where you want to assign a code and a description. Basically, a code would just be, initials that would make it easy for you to identify quickly. And you would probably want your library's 3-letter initials here, and then a brief description. So let's say I'm going to create this for the Falmouth Library. So for code, I'm just going to put in FML print. I'm not sure how many characters you're limited to, but you could do it anyway, however you want to do it. And then a fuller explanation would be FML. Okay. So now you can see we've got two templates open. One is the original, and then one is the new template for a Falmouth print book. So you want to go through here and do any customization that needs to be done to make it particular to your library. Here under location, I'm just going to put in Falmouth's initials, save it, close it, and then I'm going to close the original one. Now, the next thing to do would be to go through these many, many templates and find, oh no, I don't have to find it because it just landed right here. So by creating a new template copied from a previous one, editing it and labeling it, it's transferred it over here into my preferred templates. Just a word of warning, be really careful when you're working with templates, setting them up, because if you take one of these and edit it and then just start changing everything, it's going to mess it up for everybody else in the system. It'll make it your template and then it won't be available to other libraries. So just remember that step in between where you go to edit and copy template. Okay. And then of course, after you've done that, very important, come down here to the bottom of the box, save settings, and then click OK. And I think that's a step that sometimes we forget, is the actual save settings and then OK. And if you ever wondered why the changes you tried to make didn't take, that's probably why. So you can do this as many times as you need to. You can create as many templates as you think you need. And just remember to work your way through it and change it as for your own particular library. Now, now that we've set up templates and you select new, you can see it's going to bring up this whole menu of the templates that are available to Falmouth for creating new records. So that's the point of doing the templates. Okay, so now that we've set it up and we're ready to go, I thought the next step would be to review the MARC record, because that's what this is all about, really. So for that, I'm going to go to a PowerPoint. Lynn, do you see the PowerPoint now?
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
Not yet.
Okay. Bear with me.
So you may have to go up to that monitor. Remember the tab in PowerPoint.
Are we there yet?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. All right. Slideshow. Okay. So the MARC, in case you don't know, MARC, when we talk about MARC records, MARC is an acronym and it stands for Machine Readable Cataloging Record. It's a coded file that every field provides a specific detail to Sierra or whatever system you might be using, either about the record itself or the material being cataloged. It's really, really important that the fields in the MARC record are filled in correctly in order for a catalog search to be successful. And punctuation and spelling and spacing are also, you know, an essential part of this. So this is the top half of an existing MARC record that's already in our catalog. And I'm going to talk about, you know, the specific parts of the record and what their function is. So, oh, and a good thing to know is, and I'll show this to you later, but if you ever have a question or you're not sure what a particular MARC field is for or how it should be entered, put your cursor anywhere in that field, right click, and then select MARC Tag Info, and that will bring up a, let's see, I guess I have it further on, but that will show you what you need in that field for indicators and subfields. Okay. Where'd it go? Okay, sorry, I lost my place. Okay, the first thing we're going to talk about are the fixed fields. Now, the fixed fields are these fields that are inside the blue outline. And I just want to point out that the fixed fields for MILS cataloging there is a slight difference, and I will show you that eventually. But if you've done any copy cataloging, the fixed fields are probably, you're familiar with them. Each of these fields needs to be filled in correctly when you're creating an original record. Okay, so here we go. I don't know if you can see this very well, but I've copied the fixed field from that record here onto this page. And as you are beginning to catalog your new item, you work your way through here. You have to enter language, which in most cases is English. The cataloging date, which would be the day that you are creating this record. In Minerva, this third box here at the top is for initials. And I'm not really sure what the function of this field is, honestly, but this is where you would put your library's 3-letter code. However, there's just a limited number of these spaces available. So probably most of the libraries in Minerva here, instead of having an initial, they will enter a dash. And then also, if for some reason you need to suppress this bib record, this is where you would set that with a code. I think it's code Z. Okay, next would be the skip, which is where you enter the number of non-filing characters. Non-filing characters would be like as if your title began with the word the, or a, or an. You're instructing the system to ignore that initial article at the beginning of the title. And so the word the would be 4. You would want it to skip 4 spaces and so forth. Okay. Next would be input library. Again, this is this would show you the identity of the library that has created this record. Again, there is just a limited number of possibilities here. And you would either put in the correct initial for your library, or you again would put in a dash. Country is the state, the province, or the nation of the publisher, of where the item was published. It's usually a 3-letter code. Location is where you would put your own libraries, again, 3-letter code. And then material type. And each of these different locations or boxes are drop-down menus, except for cataloging date. That's just a field that you would fill in with the month, the day, and then the year. The other ones, you can double click and it'll give you a drop-down menu, and then you would choose the appropriate code from there. Okay, and then here's an example of the fixed fields from a MILS record. The major difference is that this first category, instead of initials, it's called bib code 3. And it works a little bit differently than it does in Minerva. You don't use location codes here. You would select from a couple of options that basically control either suppressing the record from the catalog or setting it as non-contributing, meaning that it would not contribute to the main catalog. And then also there's this category here, bib level, which is where you would choose whether or not it's a monograph, a serial, an integrating resource, that kind of thing. And you don't see that in the Minerva bib record, but this is MILS. Other than that, everything is the same. Okay, the next part of the, I'll go back. The next part we're going to look at is the MARC Leader, which is this section here in yellow. And here at the top is an image of how a MARC Leader would appear in its normal state in a bib record. This is a compressed field, so if you need to work in it, fill it out, make corrections, you need to expand the field, and you would do that by placing your cursor on the MARC Leader and right click, and then you would select either expand or Control R. That will open it up. So then this is what you're looking at here. This is a mandatory field, and it contains codes that tell Sierra important information about the MARC record itself, rather than the item being cataloged. Just a note, if you have selected the generic bib templates that I set up for you, this field has already been filled in, so you hopefully won't need to make any changes to it. But if you do have to fill it in manually, each one of these boxes that is not blocked off like here has to be coded and filled in. Record status. If you're creating an original record, this is going to be considered a new record. So this first category should be N for new. Record type is like a material type. You would select the appropriate code for either language material, a projected medium, which would be a DVD, a Blu-ray, that sort of thing. You would fill in I for a non-musical sound recording, J for a musical sound recording, M for an electronic resource, and so on. I think there may be a few more choices, but these are the main ones. And again, these are all, you can double click and open up the drop-down menu to choose whatever is appropriate. Bib level. This is similar to in the MILS in the fixed field. This is where you would indicate if the bib level is M, meaning a monograph, S for serial, or L for integrating resource. Archival control is something that we don't have to deal with, so we just leave that blank. Same with this, I think it's character encoding, we leave that blank. Let's see, where am I? Oh, I think I just misspoke. Encoding level. There are several selections here. For example, sometimes you'll see in an existing record, in this space, you'll see the number 8. that means that it was the record that you've imported was a pre-publication record. There's a lot of different selections for this particular code, but if you're creating an original record, you can leave this blank, because blank means that it is a full level record. You've got the item in hand, you're able to examine it physically, and having done that, you can provide a complete description and so forth. The next box is well, this is confusing, but a cat form. Back when we were using AACR2 rules, this code was A, but now when we're creating new records, we're following RDA rules, which is what it's hard to read because it's so small, but all of your new records should have cat form I for RDA. And then finally, we have this box here for multi-part. You would only need to use this if you were cataloging something with a number of volumes as a single item. Next, MARC tags. This is what I've outlined these in red, and when you hear the phrase MARC tags, what that is referring to is the actual 3-digit number that each MARC field has been assigned. Each one of these fields has a specific function, and in order for the system to work correctly, you kind of have to make sure that you're using the appropriate MARC tag. Oh, here's that pesky thing I wanted to show you earlier. This is what it looks like when you put the cursor in any field. You right click and you select MARC Tag Info. It opens up a menu that looks like this, and you can see it's organized by MARC tag. If you double click on any one of these, it's going to open it up and show you what your choices are for indicators and subfields. And it's just sometimes I use it a lot, actually, to remind myself of, what does this field do and why do I need it? Okay. Okay. Now this illustrates in the red box these alphabet codes that are on the far left of the MARC tag. These are called field group tags. I don't think these are an official part of a MARC record, but it's a function of Sierra, and they work in combination with the MARC tags to control how fields are indexed and displayed. Now, I have found that when people are editing records or creating new records, and they need to add a field that is not previously in the record, they try to guess what this field group tag should be, and frequently it's done incorrectly. My advice is the best way to approach this is when you're entering a new field, your cursor is first going to be in the space for the field group tag. Don't try to fill it in. Just press tab. The cursor is going to jump to the next space, fill in the field the way it should be done. And then when you enter or go down to the next field, that tag is going to fill in automatically. So don't try to guess and set that the way you think it should be. Just let the system do it automatically. And then finally, we have indicators. The 2 numeric digits following the MARC tag are called indicators. And the spaces occupied by indicators may be blank or may contain a number. Indicators are mandatory if the field requires them. Not all fields need indicators. As you can see, there's a lot of empty green spaces here. But they are very important when they're required because similar to the function of the field group tags, they tell the system to index or display the field's data in a specific way. A little housekeeping note. If you are entering a field that requires indicators and you skip over that, the system is going to tell you that you need to go back and enter the correct indicator. It's going to show this blank white box. It's not acceptable, I'm sorry, to leave indicator spaces blank. If you aren't sure of what indicators belong in the field, again, use that right click MARC Tag Info function. And we will, as we work our way through this record, you will see what some of the choices are for indicators in various fields. Okay, control fields. In existing bib records, you are aware that there are at the very top of the record, there's going to be like a 001, 003, 005, a bunch of fields like that. These are all considered control fields. And when you're creating an original record, there's only a small number of control fields that are required. A lot of those numbers are system generated, and that does not come into play when you're starting with a new record. You'll see that in other records that have been imported from other sources. So I'm gonna sort of go in reverse order, but creating original records, you're going to be working with control fields 006, 007, and 008. But we're going to start by looking at the 008 first. This is a mandatory field for what they are referring to as fixed length data elements. And there should be an 008 field in every bib record. This field contains coded information that can be used by Sierra to qualify or narrow searches. To fill it in, you would expand it the same way that you did the MARC Leader, which would be Control R or right click expand. Okay, now in this field, the first code would be for the date entered. This date is formatted differently than it is in the fixed field. You start with the last two digits of the year and then the month and the day. So in other words, for this record, the date entered was July 30th, 2020. The next field code would be date type. S is for a single known date. This is the publication date, and you would enter that publication date in the next box, which is 2020. Now, if this were an example of, say, a book that was originally published in 1970, and then it was recopyrighted or reissued in 2020, you would put the code T in date type. Oops, sorry. Put the original date in date 1, and then the second date in date 2. Country, again, it's that 3-letter code for the state, province, or nation of publication, and this should match. This code should be the same as what was in the fixed field for country. illustrations. If your material has illustrations, maps, charts, that sort of thing, you can code these fields to reflect that. Audience is an option that you can fill in. That would be, is it an adult item, an adolescent item, you know, a child item? That can be coded there. You can skip a lot of these fields here, but the system does want you to fill in this field. Is it a conference publication? 1 would be yes, 0 would be no. A fest schrift. I'm sure everybody knows what a fest schrift is, and I don't know why it's so important that it has to be coded here. But in most cases, this is going to be set at no, it is not a fest schrift. A fest schrift is a publication of numerous essays by different writers that is that have been gathered together as a tribute to a particular person. It's a, I guess it's an academic type of publication, which most of us are not going to have to deal with. Index, 0, no, it doesn't contain an index. 1 would be yes, it does. Undefined, leave that alone. Literary form, in here you can enter 0 for nonfiction, 1 for fiction, and then there are a number of other more specific details that can be noted there. Language, and then cataloging source, which in our case, creating original records, this is going to be set at D for other, meaning it this was not created by an agency or a service or anything like that. Okay, the 007 field is a fixed field for physical description, and it's required in records when the material being cataloged is non-print in nature. Use this when you're cataloging electronic resources, sound recordings, video recordings, maps, and other non-print items. In addition, you would use a 007 when the item you're cataloging includes accompanying material that is non-print in nature. For example, if you were cataloging a book, but it had a CD-ROM or a DVD or something like that inserted in the back, you would add a 007 field to describe that accompanying material. This can be kind of tricky to enter in a record. The best way to do it is, it should be in your template, but if it isn't, you need to first make sure that you've applied the correct material type in the fixed fields and in the MARC Leader. You'd save the record, then expand the 007 field and then fill it in that way. Now, this example here, I think, is comes from a sound recording. But depending on what the material type is that you're describing, the composition of 007 is going to look different. So again, work your way through it, double click in each category and fill it in from a drop-down menu. You know, if you don't fill in these fields, they're just going to look weird in the record itself, but do the best you can. And then finally, the 006. This field is used for a coded description of special aspects of the item being cataloged that can't be coded in the 008. So it's not a mandatory field, but you will find it in full level existing records. You would use this to also to describe characteristics of accompanying material. If you had a DVD that you're cataloging, and it has a printed booklet that comes with it, sort of like Criterion Collection DVDs, you would use in your record an 007 field to describe the DVD. And then you would have an 006 field that describes the booklet. You would also use an 006 to record coded computer file aspects of electronic items. Okay. 010, this is where you'll find, or where you should place the Library of Congress control number. The first 4 digits of an LC number are the year of publication. You're probably only going to find an LC control number in a print item. And the place to find it would be on the verso, which of course is the backside of the title page. If your item doesn't have an LC number, don't worry about it. You would just leave it out. Okay. Now, the 020 field, of course, is very, very important, and it's used for the ISBN, the International Standard Book Number. This is a really important field because it's used for identifying specific manifestations of a work, and it's used by our system for record matching. Newer ISBNs, I'm not sure of the time frame, but I'm going to say maybe over the last 10 years or so. The newer numbers are 13 digits, and older publications will probably just be 10 digits, excuse me. If the material you're cataloging has both a 13-digit number and a 10-digit number, you only have to record the longer number. Now, it's very important to be careful. There's a lot of books that when you check for the ISBN on the verso, they will have included the ISBN for many different editions of that book. Say you're holding the hardcover regular print, but the verso may give you that ISBN in addition to the ISBN for the paperback edition, which may not even have been published yet, for an ebook edition, et cetera, et cetera. When you're creating an original record, you should enter only the ISBN that applies to your material, and do not bother recording all the rest. Excuse me. Another thing to remember is that you'll see this a lot in our catalog where the ISBN number is followed by some text or a subfield. It might say paperback or hardcover, or it might give you a price or some other kind of information. Because of the way our system is set up for catalog sharing and matching, we have to omit any text after the ISBN number. In other words, just enter the number itself and do not add any other descriptive text. And another thing you might run into is sometimes, I find this frequently if I'm cataloging a, what do you call it? Like a turtleback, is that what they're called? Say an old paperback book that has been, had its covers removed and replaced with a a harder cover, library edition style. Sometimes the ISBN that's on the back cover of the book is not the same as what's in the book itself. You should always prefer the number that's in the book itself. For original cataloging, there are a few other publication numbers that are useful for including in the record, especially if you happen to be cataloging a serial or a periodical. The 022 field is for the International Standard Serial Number, and that number is not always available, but if it is, you can plug it in there. The UPC code number can be entered in the 024 field. This is really useful for identifying video recordings or music recordings, because sometimes they will not have an ISBN. So I would definitely include that number in your record if you can identify it. And then 028 is for a publisher or distributor number. You'll again see that frequently in sound recordings, and often like it'll appear near the ISBN number, or it might be something that's printed on the disc label or on the spine. And again, it's a good way to identify what you have. Now, a lot of these fields that I just described, well, not the Library of Congress number or the ISBN number, but some of the other publication numbers, they do require that you use indicators. And again, you can use that MARC Tag Info function that I mentioned if you're not sure how to fill those in. Now we get to the good stuff. Let's talk about the main entry. The main entry is entered in the 1XX field. And I'm describing this as a 1XX because there are different variations on what your MARC tag can be for the main entry. It might be a 100 field if it has a single person named as author. The MARC tag would be 110 if the entity responsible for the work is like a corporate or a group, something like that. But the main entry is the author or other entity that is responsible for the creation of a work. And it would use the first indicator. Indicator 10 would be if the author of a work is given with the last name first, the forename. No, what am I saying? That's not right. First indicator 0 you would use for somebody that is identified by their first name only. For example, someone like Avi or Cher, I guess is the only thing I can think of right now. Indicator 1 is used for a name that begins with the surname. Indicator 3 is if the main entry is a family name. Now, if you're cataloging an item that is based on another work and it has been adapted for this particular publication, you're going to use the adapter's name as the main entry. You'll see this a lot with, for example, graphic novels that are that are new versions of something that's been previously published. We have here in Falmouth, we have a copy of a graphic novel version of The Great Gatsby. So I can't remember who the adapter is, but that adapter would be listed as the author of this work. And then F. Scott Fitzgerald does get entered into the record, but in a different field, and we will get to that eventually. Now, things that can screw you up a little bit when you're trying to identify the main entry of a work. Sometimes a work will have no author named, or maybe the person that's named in the book is actually an editor or a compiler. If this is the case and there is no author, then you will not have a 100 field or 1XX field in your record. The title of the work will be considered the main entry. And then further down in the record, you will find the name of the editor, etc., in a different field. Cataloging music recordings can be confusing because you might have the title of the composition that's being played. You might have the name of a person who is the primary performer. It may be a conductor or a particular group that is, could be considered the main entry. The way you have to approach this would be to decide what is the point of this recording. Like, is it a performance of a specific work by a certain composer? That might be the main entry. Or maybe it's showcasing a particular performer. If that is the point of the recording, then that person would be the main entry. We can talk about this in greater detail, but that's just an example of another situation where it might be very confusing. Now, sometimes you'll encounter a work where the resource gives multiple authors. For example, let's see. There used to be a rule in AACR2 that was called the rule of 3. That no longer is applied when you're cataloging something that has multiple authors. RDA rules say that the author that is named first is the one that's going to be entered in the 100 field. And then you will list the additional authors elsewhere in the record. If the item in hand is a collection of more than one author's work and it has a collective title, then the collective title will be the main entry, meaning that there will not be a 1XX field. If the item in hand is a collection of more than one author's work and there's no collective title, the main entry is the first named author. Okay. Seems like I thought I had some examples of what that would look like. I probably will get to them.
Ellen, I just wanted to note that we've got a few minutes before 11.
Oh my God, really? Okay. All right. I'll try to wrap this up. I just wanted to remind you that the author's name that is or the main entry that is given in the 100 field is supposed to be under authority control, meaning that it should be entered in the way that the Library of Congress authority record has determined is the correct way to enter an author's name. Now, in Minerva, we've reviewed many times how you would verify a name heading. And again, that's something that we can look at later, but that is something that you should try to determine when you're creating new record. Now, MILS Catalogers, you don't have access to an authority file, but there are other ways that you can try to figure out what the correct form of an author's name is. And one would be to just go to the Minerva OPAC and enter the author's name that you have and see if Minerva gives you an alternative form of the name. You can go to the authorities database at the Library of Congress, and that is the web address there, https://authorities.loc.gov. And then in your author field, you should be using a relator term, which would be something like you qualify the author's name with a subfield E that says author or author illustrator, something like that. We have a lot of examples of what this should look like. I've listed a couple of different locations, and you can go to the Library of Congress and find a huge list of relator terms if you're not sure what to use. So let me just see if I have anything else I want to squeeze in there today. Okay, I think it would make sense just to go on to one more section, and then I'll stop for today, because I'd like to talk about title, and because it sort of goes hand in hand with the author part of the record. The title of a work is entered in the MARC 245 field. And very important that you use the indicators correctly. Indicator 0 means that there is no author or responsible party named in the record. So meaning that the title is the main entry. Indicator 1 means that you do have a main entry given in the 1XX, and the title is considered an added entry. And then indicator 2 records the non-filing characters or the skip, and it needs to match the same number that you entered in the fixed fields. To enter the title statement, record the title proper in the 245 field. This would be the most prominently stated phrase. If you have a subtitle, that's considered additional title information, and it's a phrase that explains or limits the meaning of the title. That's entered in subfield B. The statement of responsibility is entered in subfield C. Transcribe the information from the title page into the 245 exactly as it appears on the resource. If there is a discrepancy between the author's name authority and the way it appears on the item, the 245 field would look like this. No, I take it back. What I should have said was, if there is a discrepancy between the author's name, authority, and the way it appears on the item, you would record the name as it appears here in the 245 field. And finally, this can be confusing when you're cataloging an item that is made up of more than one work that doesn't have an inclusive collective title, but the author is the same. The way you enter the title would be like this: the first title at the beginning of the field, space, semicolon, and then a subfield B with the subsequent title. If you have a book that is individual works, it doesn't have a collective title, and the authors are different, enter it with the first or the most prominent title first, followed by the author's name, period, space, and then the second and third titles here belong to a different author, so it's entered this way. So, and then if you have other names that are given on the title page, like an editor, a co-author, the author of a preface, a narrator, someone like that, you would enter that in this manner after the author's name, space, semicolon, space, and then that subsequent information. Okay, and I guess I'll stop there. I know I've confused myself this morning, so I'm sure it's very confusing for other people too. But hopefully, if you have questions, then we can go actually directly into Sierra and look at some examples of what I've been talking about.
So that first question I have is the examples of a monograph, serial, and integrating resource.
Okay, all right. Yeah, before we get there, I just wanted to say, you know, cataloging is really challenging because you have to sort of think about it in two ways. And one is, you know, the whole concept behind cataloging and choosing the elements and knowing what the actual rules are. But then the other side of that is knowing how to enter it in your computerized system so that it actually makes the catalog work correctly. And so that's why there's so much emphasis on entering MARC records correctly and all the little nuts and bolts like indicators and tags and this and that. So, okay, so we wanted to look at examples of different record types.
Yeah, the monograph specifically. So when you're entering in the MARC Leader,
Yep.
What's the difference between a monograph, a serial, and integrating resource?
Okay.
How do you identify those?
Okay. All right. Hopefully you're seeing my Sierra screen.
Yep.
Okay. All right. The one that I usually use for an example would be the searcher, because it's easy to type. Okay, so this is, do you see the bib record for the searcher? Okay. So as you can see, this is an existing record and there are many, many libraries attached to it. But again, in the Minerva catalog, I should have opened the MILS catalog and or the MILS Sierra, and I didn't, I apologize. But in MILS, instead of input library, I think you have a different code and I don't remember what it's called, but
It's the encoding. It's it would be monograph or
right. Okay.
similar to the MARC Leader.
All right. I should actually. Well, I'm afraid if I try to open Mills now, I'll just confuse myself utterly. But for now, we'll just stay with Minerva. In the MARC Leader, I mean, I'm so used to looking at the MARC Leader that I know that this is a monograph because it's got the letter A right here. But you would expand it, and this record type is where you would fill in, is it language material or, you know, a print item? Is it a video recording, a musical sound recording, etc.? So that's record type, and it corresponds to material type up here. Bib level opens up this menu where you would select the appropriate code for, is it a monograph? Is it a serial? Is it an integrating resource? So that's where you would code that. Now, hopefully I don't have to like give you the definition of all those terms right now, but if you were to, let's see. This is confusing because I've got, there we go. Trying to close this record. Okay. Let's go to a periodical. Waiting.
There's always some little technical glitch.
No, it's like my
Going slow.
Sierra just died or something. Seriously. There we go.
If it continues to be slow, I can open up mine.
Okay. Well, I think I'm there now. Excuse me. So this is the bib record for the magazine In Style. And you can see, looking here at the MARC Leader, instead of the letter M for monograph, we see the letter S. So if I expand this, here in the bib level code, serial is selected. And then for an integrating resource, which is not something that I've worked with a lot. Trying to think of an example. I don't know, does value line still exist? I think that was considered an integrating resource because it was something that was updated in just in sections, not the whole work at one time. Okay. All right, so that's either wrong or it's a bad example. I'm sorry, I can't think of a good example right now for an integrating resource, but were this an integrating resource, this would be coded L. Okay.
Okay, I think that answers the idea of those questions.
Okay, I hope so.
So the next one is, I know you and I had discussed this, but I wasn't sure for sure. Could we get a copy of your presentation? Is that something we can send out with the PDF manual that you have as well? because someone wanted your presentation.
Oh, a copy of the PowerPoint?
Mhm.
Sure.
Okay, so I'll
Yeah.
add that. So we will send that as well with the manual and the recordings after the second presentation. We'll just send everything out all together. So the other question is the 010 field required? And I believe you answered it when you said it wasn't on the TP Verso, but if you could just.
It's, I'm not sure that it's considered a mandatory field. However, if you have access to it, if you see it, I would enter it. So yes, that's my answer.
And then another one is, if you have the paperback and hardcover, do you need to create two separate records, one for each?
Okay, this is something we've talked about a lot in Minerva meetings, and the actual rules for when you don't create a new record and you do are pretty clear. And when you get this printed guide, you're going to see that I've included, and I'll show you later, you know, a couple of pages of links to websites. And one of them is to the ALA document that describes how and when to add a new record. Anyway, long story short, in Minerva, and we have made some slight changes to the rules just to accommodate, you know, the huge number of libraries that we're dealing with. And if you have a paperback edition of a hardcover book, and you can attach an item record to the bib for the hardcover if the publisher is the same, and or if the name of the publisher is different, but it is an imprint of the same publisher as the original edition. That would be something that you could attach. For example, Penguin Publishing has an imprint called, oh help. Not a good example. Scholastic, okay, has an imprint, I think, called Little Tree or Little Apple or something like that. They can be attached to the same records, but
it's little branches.
Little branches?
Yeah, little. I cataloged them.
Oh, okay. Well, if they're the same edition, same, in other words, it's not a revised edition, it doesn't have additional content. If the number of pages is within, say, plus or minus 5 pages of the original, and the publisher is the same, yes, you can attach a paperback record to a hardcover bib. And we do that in Minerva just to cut down on, you know, the number of records that you have to wade through to find what you want. Now, if it's a completely different edition, a revised edition, or maybe they've gone and they've added an excerpt from another book, from the author's next forthcoming book to the back of a paperback, or it's a completely different publisher, then no, you would have to bring in or create a new record.
But the ISBN number would be different, right? For paperback and hardcover.
The ISBN for a paperback would be different, but what you can do is add it. If you're going to attach to the bib record for the hardcover, you would add your ISBN number to the record. Okay.
And Ellen, I clarified in the chat that MILS follows just about all the standards of Minerva, except in the use of the 001 field where we do allow the Sky River number.
Right. Okay.
So the next question is, can you add the back cover ISBN to one of these records? I'm assuming that that means it doesn't match perhaps the TP Versa, or it's not present in TP Versa.
Right. Yep. Yes, you can do that. I just cataloged a kid's book yesterday that had a, one of those hard, what do you call those things? It had been sort of reissued with a hard cover, but inside the covers is the paperback.
Ellen, we call them reinforced bindings.
Okay.
And
all
we
right.
use permabound and turtleback and a bunch of those.
Okay, so yes, you could attach and just add your ISBN from the back cover.
Okay, so the next one, Debbie answered this, but for those who weren't paying attention to the chat, if you could just elucidate on this one. So your 100 field would be the authority name, but the 245 would be as it appears on the title page.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. And then we have a two-part question regarding the record templates. And the first one is, one of my templates is missing the MARC Leader. How do I insert one? And the second is, can we delete a template or might that mess up other libraries?
Okay, first part is, it's kind of hard to insert a MARC field or a MARC Leader into a template. And my advice would be to start fresh. And use one of the generic templates that that does have the MARC. And sometimes when you are using a template to create a new record, as you work through the fixed fields, it's very weird. The MARC Leader kind of disappears. But when you actually save the record, it should reappear. Okay, so what I would do would be to start fresh with a new template. And then the second part of that question, I can't even remember. What was it?
Can we delete a template or might that mess up?
Oh, you can delete a template if it's from the left side of the screen under preferred templates. If it's one of the templates you have selected for your personal use, you can delete it, but please don't delete a template from the right-hand side, which is, the ones that you would choose from.
If it's one of theirs on the right-hand side, I think they should still be able to delete that, but not anybody else's and not the generic.
Okay, well, that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. So this one says, if a new record is added and the I think this main authority is new and doesn't an authority record, and there isn't an authority record in the system, what is the procedure we should follow? This is a Minerva library, but I think it'll apply to MILS as well.
Okay. Well, what you would do is, maybe I should demonstrate verifying. Let me go back to Sierra.
So if you do this in Minerva, this will be different than MILS because MILS doesn't have the authority function.
Sorry, this is taking so long. Okay, so let's pretend that we've never heard of Tana French, that this is her first book that she's ever published. Okay, and so we want to verify that we have her name entered as the authority would dictate. What you do to verify this, and it's the same process you would use for verifying a subject heading, is put the cursor in the field, right click, scroll down to verify heading. Now, the first thing you're going to see is all the entries in the catalog using that name, French, Tana. What I do is click on, or double click, but click on the plus sign to expand it. And the very first thing that pops up here is the authority record for her. And I can double click on that, click on view, and actually look at the authority record. And in doing so, I'm verifying that the way that I have it entered in the bib record is the way the Library of Congress wants me to enter it. So that's great. Now, let's say this wasn't here, that there was no authority record for Tana French. Your next step would be to go up here to the search bar and change local to in view. And then see what you get. InView is a database that's maintained by Innovative. And it's a database that works with Sierra, and it contains all these authority records. So having failed to find one in the Minerva catalog, we go to InView and we see that there is an authority record for Tana French. So I would highlight it, select it. I like to view it before I do anything else. And then you can save it, indicate whether it's an author heading or a subject heading, and then click on OK. And that actually imports the authority record into the system. And that way you have an authority record now to support what you've put in the bib record. So I'm just going to cancel this because I don't want to create a duplicate. Now, say you've taken all these steps and you've gone to InView and you've searched and you have not found, you can't find anything. Then I would not worry about it. Just assume that you've done the best job that you can. And more often than not, the twice a month authority update process that Minerva uses will more likely than not send us a new authority record that can be matched up with the bib record. So there may not be a heading yet, but there may be one in the near future. So you've done the best you can. Now, there will be times when, maybe it's a local publication and we feel that an authority record is really needed, but we don't think that there's going to be one coming from the Library of Congress. There are people in catalogers in Minerva that can create authority records. Or I can anyway. I don't know if anyone else can.
So Ellen, I did want to note that it's actually 11:32 and that some
Okay.
folks might need to scoot.
Okay.
We could finish up the questions, and just for those who do have to scoot, it is being recorded. So you will be able to see those when the presentation comes out. But if you do have any questions that you were hoping to be able to unmute for, just insert them into the chat and we'll answer those, and you'll at least have those, or you can save them for the next week's presentation.
Right. Okay.
So let's see. So from Barbara Meyer, she mentions when you say attached, do you mean just to add another ISBN number to the record? I think it was just a terminology you used where you meant to say insert versus attach, but it may be Barb, if you could unmute to clarify if you are still on. She may have had to skip. No,
no, I'm still here. And I also have another question, if I could ask it. That is exactly what I mean.
If you could add it to the chat just so we can make sure we're getting everybody's in order, that would be great.
I did already.
Okay, good.
But yeah, that's exactly what I meant. When attach a record, does that mean you just insert a new ISBN number?
Well, when I talk about attaching, what I'm referring to is not original cataloging. It's when you find a bib record in the system and you want to add your copy to it. What you're doing is attaching your item record to a bib record. So that's what I mean by attaching. Now, if you are
That's my
attaching,
understanding as well.
if you're attaching an item record to a bib record, and you know that it's allowable to do so, but the ISBNs are different, they don't match, then what you would do is add or insert your ISBN to the bib record.
Thank you. That answered my question.
Oh, good. Okay.
Okay, so the next question is, so if there's only one remote record that they can find in Sky, do they work with it to make it OLC, or do they create a new record?
Well, it's up to you. If you find a record that is appropriate in Sky River and you can improve it to, meet minimum standards, you can do that. If it's not a good viable match, then you would create a new record. You would do an original record. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with finding an incomplete or a short record from a remote site and improving it.
And the next question, and a few people have added on to this question, so it's got multiple layers. Nancy Curry asks, if you have 2 dates confirmed, but they are the same year, do you include 2 dates or just keep it as one? And she has an example. You have the publication date and copyright date, both confirmed separately, but they are both 2021.
Okay, we're actually going to get to that next week. But yes, if you have a copyright date and a publication date and they're the same, you can just use the publication date and don't worry about adding the copyright date. If they're different, then that is when you would include both.
And along with that question is, when do you use P or R in the, I believe, date field, or do we just use T? So if that's not clear, if Cassandra can unmute, if she's on, and she's still on.
Okay, let me look at that.
Okay.
Yes, it's in the 008 field. And I think R is for reprint, P might be for republished or something. I can't remember exactly what it stands for, but I always get confused on when I'm supposed to use T or P or R.
Well, what I would say to that is you use whatever is appropriate. But let me look at what we're talking about here. We're talking about date type, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, well, T would be if you had a publication date and a copyright date and they were different, you would use T and put your pub date in date 1 here and your copyright date, or whichever is older, you would put in date 1 and then put in date 2, the more recent one. R would be if it was published, say, in 1970 and it was reprinted and it's noted on the verso it was reprinted in 1990, then you would, again, you would use R. P, cataloging, you're not going to get into this deep of detail. I would kind of recommend that you try not to. For the most part, you're going to be using S or T.
I think I've seen P maybe on DVD records or CD records. Would that be appropriate there?
Yeah, like if you have a DVD or a sound, a music recording, and it was actually produced and first released in one year, and then like maybe it was first produced in 2020, but it wasn't actually made available for distribution till 2021. If you have those two different dates on your material, you can enter it that way. But again, for what we're doing, I don't think that these are terribly important details that we need to get hung up on, which is why I, didn't really deal with them in the presentation. And for stuff like this, if I'm really puzzled about it, I have to investigate it, and I'll do that by looking in some of the books that I have, cataloging instruction and so forth, or I'll search it on Google. But more often than not, this is not a distinction that you're going to have to make. Okay. I know that's not a very good answer, but that's the best I can do, I think. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the final chat question, actually, I think we're getting more. So Barbara Ameyer has a question about creating new discovery kits. I don't know if that pertains to original cataloging, is more of a specific library question.
It is, Lynn. It's and I'm glad you're both on here because you've helped me with the discovery kit records before. So I'm adding 2 new discovery kits, and what I was going to do is just copy one of the old records and fudge with that to make a new record, because they have multiple ISBN numbers, because there's many books included in the kits, and then I need to know if it will automatically suppress from the MILS catalog for other MILS libraries and that sort of thing. If I just copy a record, because you made it so that it was only requestable from Liberty Library. And so if I copy a record, will it copy all of that as well? And if this is the first time I've done this in MILS system, the other records I created and they were transferred over. So I'm just wondering the best way to do this.
So and it looks like Ellen, maybe her connection lagged and she's disappeared, but I can answer the lending aspect of this. Those lending rules are already assigned for your location and for your I-types that you choose for that. So that has nothing to do with the original cataloging piece, other than you need to use the same location code and the same I-types in order to get things to circulate to only your patrons the same.
So it's my idea of taking one of the records for Discovery Kit, copying that record and creating a new record. Would that be the easiest and the best way to do this? I mean, instead of Birds Discovery Kit, it might say Maine Statehood Discovery Kit.
So I wish Ellen was here to answer the bib aspect of that, but the bibliographic record, if you copy that and just change it for your new discovery kit, that has nothing to do with the lending part, but it'll help illustrate your material so that patrons can find it. You just want to change those pieces that are different from each kit.
Exactly.
The item record stuff, copying it from another one is good so that you make sure that you're using the same same location and I-type so that the same loan rules apply for your patrons. Looks like we lost you for a bit there, Ellen. So you're muted. Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. My setup here just completely seized up, and so I don't know what I missed.
So Barb had been asking about copying an existing discovery kit, and would the same, lending stuff apply to that? And I mentioned that copying the bib record, that part doesn't really apply to how it lends, other than it shows a holding. So I did miss that part. So the bib location does show in the catalog, hey, I have this material, but she would need to change those pieces in, if she copied that bib record, to match what's this new
Yeah,
discovery.
you can copy a bib record, but then you have to remember to edit and update everything that is different.
Mhm.
And then as far as the circ rules go, that's not something that I deal with at all. And Lynn is the person to speak to about that.
So I get, my question basically is, would it be easier to copy a record that I already have and then like change the date, the authors, the ISBN and all that other stuff? Because there's multiple books in each discovery kit, and there might be a DVD and there might be books and there might be handouts and there might be other stuff. Or should I try to create an original template for discovery kits? Because I haven't done this before in the MILS system.
I would I would say, I think it's a better idea to create a template that you can use over and over again, because what I have found is that when you copy a record and then try to update it, often we get into trouble there because it doesn't get fully edited, and we end up with records getting really messed up.
Yeah, it's really
So,
miss things because it looks like it's already filled.
yes,
So,
it's a very meticulous process, and you have to be very thorough, or we end up with records for two completely different items, but they have the same ISBN, or that type of thing.
Would it be preferable not to put ISBN numbers in the discovery kit records then? So because I may have an Eric Carle book of The Very Hungry Caterpillar on the shelf, and I may have the same book in the discovery kit.
I can see some migration issues.
Yeah, I think my own preference for a kit like that a homemade kit that you're assembling would be, but this is something that probably needs to be discussed at a different level, but I would be inclined to leave out those ISBNs because, yes, as Lynn said, it's not going to play well with the other items in the catalog that have a matching.
Since the loads, it goes and finds the first found. So if it happens to be the kit, so whatever library's records are being migrated into the system, if the first found is that kit, it's going to attach to that. And so that library's ton of French book, for whatever reason you have a discovery kit with a ton of French book in it, it will attach to yours.
That would make an interesting kit though.
I know, but hey, there could be an adult discovery kit that has really cool books in it.
Yeah, John Clark just made a suggestion that you would use a contents note, a 505, to list the various components of that kit. And that way it would be clear to the person that's requesting it or borrowing it what is in the kit, what they're getting, but it's not going to complicate the catalog in other ways.
So my other question then is, should I go back in and remove all the ISBN numbers from my other 30-some discovery kits?
Well, it could be done. It could be done globally. If that's an issue that you would like to take care of, we can certainly.
It doesn't bother me. It depends on what Lynn would know better how it's going to affect the system.
Yeah, that's something that we can talk about since it's actually separate from original cataloging. Let's talk about the best method for that, Barb, because I think we can do it globally, but I'm not sure if you'd want that listed anywhere else. So I'd rather look at
Okay.
those records first before making that determination.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So I don't have any other questions in the chat, but I don't know if there are any other questions that people have been holding on to. And if not, then I guess we're done for today.
Okay, I thought maybe I would just quickly, if people are still with us, show them the Word document that they're going to get, because it's got a lot of things that you might be happy to know about. But it actually, you know what? Oh, here it is. Oh, I'm disabled now, so never mind.
Hopefully I can, sorry.
Oh,
You are right there. Sorry, I forgot that you had gone out or been pushed out.
okay, okay. Okay, this is the Word document that I've put together that you'll be able to access once this is all over with. And I'm not going to show you the whole thing. I just want to show you some of the things that have been included in the packet. Okay, so this is a list of many different online websites that that will be helpful to you when you have questions. There's rule examples, there's record examples, lots of resources here. And I just keep finding things and adding to them. But so I think this will be really helpful. Then I created some worksheets for different types of material. If you are ready to tackle an original cataloging project, you might want to print one of these worksheets and use it to pull out, to extract all the relevant information before you actually start entering it in the catalog. So I have a bunch of worksheets like that. And then what else? Oh, this is I stole this from somewhere, I don't remember where, but it's examples of all the different carrier or content media and carrier fields by material type. And we didn't talk about this yet today, but I plan to use this myself. I think this will be really handy. And I guess that's it. That's all I had to show off today. Okay.
If there aren't any other questions, thank you guys for coming, and we will see you next Friday, same bat time, same bat channel.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.